when we talk about free will, humans are not really that because they're just responding to the decisions they made in the past. I think the closest thing you have to a free will for a human is the ability to change your environment for the future. And it might only be a tiny little thing. And I think free will is something you earn. In some sense, you start off in life and the food you eat, the milk your mother produces is affected by what she eats and how she manages her gut and her microbiome and her diet. And then you start to get fed, kids are just getting fed 7-Ups and stuff when they're a child. It's like that's throwing them in a different thing. And so in some sense, we kind of get thrown down this path that shapes our gut microbiome, which shapes our decisions and our impulses and all these different issues, all the different factors that play into life. And it seems like as we start to get some space from that, we have, and like we said earlier, it generally happens when something breaks in your life that becomes the shock to your system, so to speak, where you don't eat. People that get stressed, they don't eat for a day or two or something like that. And so fasting has been shown to kind of like change your microbiome pretty dynamically. So something, you could have something traumatic. It could be a war, something that throws your life off. You have to move. You don't have food, whatever it is, something that throws off that. And like any major stress in your life can really derail you. And in some sense, that gives you a moment of clarity. And I think that's the point of a society, is that it gives you, even if you come off a poor start, you can look and say sports are an example of structured, organized team events where you have community, you have something that even if you don't want to do this, you're going to do it. It could be service. I think that's why a year of service is such a valuable thing for kids to do after they graduate high school. Before you do anything else, it's like, it's not all about you. So go serve. Be in the military. If your kids that don't know what to do, they just go to the military. And it's like, okay, is it the best thing they could do? Probably, because it does give them structure. It gives them organization. And if you don't have the wherewithal and the space to think about yourself as an individual, because your life has kind of shifted so far down this slide that you can't really change it, then you're probably not going to be able to change it. You probably don't have any free will, but you can end up in an institution, whether it's jail, whether it's the military, whether it's public school. I don't know, something that forces you to say, okay, overcome your impulses and see this thing. And if you can start to pick up on that lesson, you have a window, a crack in the window that lets you see, I could do something different. And that might be your first chance ever at having free will to say, if I do this different, if I don't go every day after school, I go hang out with my friends and I smoke weed. So then I end up, we end up doing whatever. It's like, but if I don't walk down that, if I just go to this alley and I join a sports team, ooh, that changes it. And so you see that one little decision opens up space to continue to build on that. And so you start to see this slight shift of a decision that changes the things you're put around, which changes the things you consume, the food you eat, the thoughts, the ideas that you are faced with, that all factor in and change your microbiome and your overall system. And that little by little can shift the balance. And of course, it's tough at first and it's delicate, just like any other change is. But if you think about these things as you're giving your microbiome a chance to adjust, that changes the things that you desire. And so you end up, rather than desiring your short-term hits of dopamine and sugar and all these things, you start to desire the longer-term fulfillment. And that's not something that's obvious or an evolutionary thing. It just is something that only happens by chance. How do you get people to play a deep game before they get caught off by these limbic systems like jealousy? And so in that sense, if you could see the underlying trillions of cells that are shaped by your environment, the only free will you have is ever so often when something breaks or you're forced to do it, you can shift the tide of that microbiome to change the future. And then over years of consistent effort, you can develop an ironclad microbiome that just gives you a new gut sense. When my gut says I do this or that. And so once you start to, at first, you don't really have a gut sense for what truth is, because you don't really know how to resonate with anything. You don't know how to pay attention to details and know if you don't know how to edit anything well. But over time, you start to get this real sense of like, that's it. That's true. That's valuable. This is what I want. And then you can iron and you connect to that in the field of potential, the ether of potential, literally, all the electromagnetic spaces. You can start to connect to things that resonate with you, literally. Like you start to see these words as having meaning. And that gives you a sense of a North Star, a magnetic north to follow. And that over time turns you into a person of character, someone of repute, someone that people could trust. When did it start? Well, when something broke or when I was forced to do it, I developed these things. But it's a continued choice to make sure that tomorrow's environment looks like it did today. And at some point, you might not know this, but you stumble forward, like you said, into the uncertainty. You don't know, but it's a small little So it's a fraught path that is never clear unless you're looking in hindsight, and that's where you start to grind. You start to calibrate on these deeper things like love and truth,